Today is the last book review of the 2023 season. Our book today is Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer, reviewed by Jenny Monroe. Jenny worked in the Elmira Corning region with Corning Summer Theater, the Rockwell Museum, the Clemens Center, and as a Rhodes Scholar Coordinator at Watson Homestead. She's been involved with arts education, marketing, and tour guiding while employed at these local nonprofits. She's also an active volunteer, having served on a dozen community boards, including her current position as council president at Elmira's Park Church. Jenny has been learning, gathering, and teaching Haudenosaunee cultural stories for over 40 years. So welcome, Jenny. I need your help, Barb.
There you got it. Thank you. Thanks so much, Barb. I am. Make a little noise, make a little noise. Get this adjusted. Can you hear me, Anita, Susie? Is this good? Okay, great. So you may wonder why the circle. So we'll let you in on some insider information. In Indigenous cultures, people always meet in a circle. Why? Because there is no head or foot of a circle and everyone is equal. So it also works for me to pass around these artifacts as I talk from hand to hand, and we're going to do it in a counterclockwise manner, the same direction as Sky Woman danced on the turtle shell. And that's a teaser for something coming a little later on. Okay. So those of you with gaps between you, if you can reach to the person to your right, that's good. And then, may I impose upon Deb, maybe if you could sit next to the table, if I could impose on one of you just to get the artifacts back to the table at the end. Jenny, if you could do that, Jenny, awesome. Thank you so much. Well, let's get started. I'm so grateful to be asked to return to Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass after first reading it when it was published about 10 years ago, and now having retired after spending 40 years teaching about Finger Lakes Indigenous culture and taking out-of-towners into our woods. 47 years ago, my husband and I settled in Corning, which was at that time an hour's drive east of where my grandmother was born and raised on her parents' dairy farm in the far northwestern corner of Steuben County. In my role as educator of the then new Rockwell Museum, I needed a fast-tracked introduction to Iroquois culture in order to design respectful school programs in the museum education era of the federal legislation known as NAGPRA, or Native American Graves Repatriation Act. I traversed the state, visiting other museums and powwows to collect artists and presenters, and to purchase artifacts for the museum programs. Many of those I sought came to become treasured friends of mine, and especially teachers for me, and for the audiences that I created for them. And my first pass around is my dear, dear teacher, Midge Stock, who lived in Salamanca. She's no longer with us, but she wanted to be remembered to all my audiences because she said, remember, tell all your audiences that you are a white lady, a white museum educated lady type person, but you have had the blessing of myself and my mother, who was clan mother at Seneca, at Salamanca. So that's Midge at one of the workshops that we had at Watson Homestead. So let's get back. This work also continued at Watson Homestead with Rhodes Scholar programs that I led there for 17 years. And for many of the late years that I worked, I just retired a couple of years ago, we took 2 annual Iroquois culture programs, 2 weeks of Rhodes Scholar in May, 1 week, and 1 week in October. So I realized this morning it would have been this week because I remember driving back from Ganandagan and Victor, visiting that museum with my group. We would see these gorgeous Finger Lakes leaves all along Canandaigua Lake, and they were amazed. So that was a beautiful memory, beautiful sense memory for me. I wanted to start with an introduction, obviously, about the author, Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I first read the book 10 years ago, reread it again a couple years ago, and then please Google her when you get back home. Because on YouTube, for example, there are many live presentations that Robin has made about this, including a recent New York Times beautiful program. And you can get the sense of who she is. But guess what came on my Libby, literally this morning? My request to borrow Braiding Sweetgrass. So I'm going to bring Robin right into the room and have her speak just for a couple of minutes, but I want you to feel her voice reading the preface of the book. Let's see if this works.
For all the keepers of the fire, my parents, my daughters, and my grandchildren, yet to join us in this beautiful place. Hold out your hands and let me lay upon them a sheaf of freshly picked sweetgrass, loose and flowing like newly washed hair, golden green and glossy above. The stems are banded with purple and white where they meet the ground. Hold the bundle up to your nose. Find the fragrance of honeyed vanilla over the scent of river water and black earth, and you understand its scientific name, Hierochloi odorata, meaning the fragrant, holy grass. In our language, it is called Winkosh, the sweet-smelling hair of Mother Earth. Breathe it in, and you start to remember things that you didn't know you'd forgotten. A sheaf of sweetgrass bound at the end and divided into thirds is ready to braid. In braiding sweetgrass so that it is smooth, glossy, and worthy of the gift, a certain amount of tension is needed. As any little girl with tight braids will tell you, you have to pull a bit. Of course you can do it by yourself, by tying one end to a chair, or by holding it in your teeth and braiding backward away from yourself. But the sweetest way is to have someone else hold the end, so that you pull gently against each other, all the while leaning in, head to head, chatting and laughing, watching each other's hands, one holding steady while the other shifts the slim bundles over one another, each in its turn. Linked by sweetgrass, there's reciprocity between you. Linked by sweetgrass, the holder as vital as the braider. The braid becomes finer and thinner as you near the end, until you're braiding individual blades of grass, and then you tie it off. Will you hold the end of the bundle while I braid? Hands joined by grass. Can we bend our heads together and make a braid to honor the earth? And then I'll hold it for you, while you braid too. I could hand you a braid of sweetgrass, as thick and shining as the plate that hung down my grandmother's back. But it's not mine to give, nor yours to take. Wingosh belongs to herself. So I offer in its place a braid of stories meant to heal our relationship with the world. This braid is woven from 3 strands: Indigenous ways of knowing, scientific knowledge, and the story of an Anishinaabe scientist trying to bring them together in service to what matters most. It is an intertwining of science, spirit, and story. Old stories and new ones that can be medicine for our broken relationship with the earth. A pharmacopoeia of healing stories that allow us to imagine a different relationship in which people and land are good medicine for each other.
I hope all of you know about Libby. Yes, it's the Southern Tier Library service where you can get books on your phone for free. Okay, so go on your StarCat, go on and search for Libby, L-I-B-B-Y, and you can see all the books they have. You can read them on your phone, or you can listen to them. My favorite way is to listen. So I just found out about it too, so I thought I would spread the word. It's a wonderful service, love it. Robin Wall Kimmerer's book is such a generous teacher, as each essay has been woven with the foundation of traditional native story, to which she adds a scientist's perspective of the characteristic of the plant, all within telling of the personal narrative of herself as professor or mother or spiritual practitioner. Each chapter is a braid that weaves together, that results in a more orderly and deeper understanding of the interaction between human and the natural world. Here is a sweetgrass braid, like she was talking about. And what you want to do when it comes around to you is sniff. Because that's the importance of sweetgrass, the gorgeous, gorgeous smell. In the humid August time, it's even more frequent than it is today. It's a little dried out. The book itself is dense. It's just shy of 400 pages. It's divided into 5 sections, and each reflects an aspect of the circle of planting sweetgrass, tending sweetgrass, braiding sweetgrass, burning sweetgrass, and finally returning the gift. So, what is sweetgrass? Here's this coming around. Here is a little star that my friend Midge made for me. This is the beginning of all baskets with white ash splints and sweetgrass wound around. That smells nice too, also. Here's a basket that my grandmother probably got as a young girl when she went to the Syracuse State Fair when she was a girl. This would have been the early 1900s, and went to the Indian tent. I put the strawberry on top, but it smells nice too. Here's a Mohawk splint ash basket that has some sweetgrass and the ash splints. With emerald ash borer disease, that invasive insect, we're losing a lot of our ash. And we're losing exactly the ash trees that the Indian people, the Haudenosaunee women, have used forever to make their baskets. One more example of sweetgrass I'll pass around. This is, as you might imagine, called a strawberry basket, because it looks like a strawberry, but it has a beautiful old sweetgrass handle. There you go. Good enough. Kimmerer calls the sweet-smelling, flowing hair of Mother Earth. And here's a sense memory for you, those of you who have had children. The smell of a newly washed child's head. Does that bring a sense memory to you? Sniffing the top of a beautiful child's head. That is that kind of a memory. So the smell memories, you may get some as you smell the sweetgrass going around from your childhood. To braid is to make orderly and to strengthen, weaving 3 strands. For Kimmerer, they, as she said in the preface, they are science, spirit, and story, bringing them together in service of what matters most. A braid holds the tension between the strands, and to braid someone's hair is to care for them and to illustrate your love. It was difficult for me to get through the book quickly because even on the second read, I wanted to put it down and take notes. But then I remembered that I was retired and I didn't have to do that anymore, so that's great. I recommend that you buy the book and read 1 essay every day for a month, and that'll get you through because there's about 30 essays in the book. I believe that you'll develop a new way of seeing and feel a deeply quieting sense of gratitude about the abundant place in which we are so privileged to live. That is, until the end of the book, when you might be drawn into a disquiet, a feeling an itch that needs scratching, as the author skillfully brings us right up close to the environmental degradation that we are experiencing. And she asks us, what are we going to do with those feelings of despair? Self-described on the cover, Robin Wall Kimmerer is a mother, a botanist, a decorated professor, and an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, located in Oklahoma. Gathering Moss was her first book, and it was awarded the John Burroughs Medal for Outstanding Nature Writing. Her writings have also appeared in Orion, O Magazine, and numerous scientific journals. She lives in Fabius, New York, up near Syracuse, where she is the SUNY Distinguished Professor, Teaching Professor of Environmental Biology, and the founder and director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. This, her second book, is both a New York Times and a Washington Post bestseller, and is named a Best Essay Collection of the Decade by Literary Hub. Here is the Library of Congress's summary description of the book. Thank you. As a leading researcher in the field of biology, Robin Wall Kimmerer understands the delicate state of our world. But as an active member of the Potawatomi Nation, she senses and relates to this world through a way of knowing far older than any science. In Braiding Sweetgrass, she intertwines these two modes of awareness, the analytical and the emotional, the scientific and the cultural, to ultimately reveal a path towards healing the rift that grows between peoples and nature. The woven essays that construct this book bring people back into conversation with all that is green and growing, a universe that never stopped speaking to us even when we forgot to listen. I recommend this book to you with great appreciation to the author for having written it. Have you ever had to answer a child's question about how the universe works or why, and found that you chose an analogy to do so? Many traditional Indigenous explanations work that way. For example, why does smoke go up when most everything else is affected by gravity? We could use physical science principle to explain this. Hot air rises and takes with it all the unburned particulates. Native storytellers may say that smoke can contain the prayers of the human beings, that Creator draws up to the sky world so that those prayers can be known. Which is correct? Do we have to choose one over the other, or could they both be true? This is what's called a smudge stick. It hasn't been used yet, so it doesn't have a smoky smell, but it has a beautiful smell of sage, which, when burned in ceremonial use, of course, the smoke rises. So it would take your prayers to Creator if you were so inclined. Since we're so fortunate to live in this beautiful part of the country, a part where vivacious Indigenous culture still lives and shares out of the bounty of their original land base, so unusual. Let's dive right in and see how Kimmerer braids sweetgrass. Let's start at the very beginning, at the Haudenosaunee story of creation. Some of you know about Sky Woman, a pregnant female deity who fell from the sky world with just a handful of plants and roots that she was able to grab. She fell through the sky. There you go. Into a dark world and a watery abyss. Geese flew up to her and rescued her and broke her fall. They were able to place her gently on the back of a turtle. the only place where she would not drown. Water animals came up to welcome her, and at her request, brought up mud from deep below the ocean. Sky Woman spread this earth across the shell so that she could plant the seeds that she had brought with her from the sky world. In her delight, she danced a counterclockwise circle around the turtle's shell, and it expanded as a reflection of her gratitude and the turtle's pride in being able to save this strange creature from the sky. Their combined actions created Turtle Island, where you and I live today. Creation stories of Indigenous people lay down basic cultural norms. Here we have a woman as the star of what would become a matriarchal culture, planting seeds and being grateful. Braiding Sweetgrass begins with this story of how plants became not just food, but medicine and relatives. The author contrasts Turtle Island with the Christian Garden of Eden. Both abundant, yes, but in one, all life forms are considered relations, and in the other, anything non-human becomes an it and is relegated to become subservient to humankind. Contrast the roles of the two women, Eve and Sky Woman, one the heroine and the other the transgressor. Rather than stay in the garden, Adam and Eve are banished as exiles to feed themselves from the sweat of their brows. The garden becomes something that must be subdued, called unimproved land in contemporary real estate lingo. The author and professor asks her third-year college students on their way to careers in environmental protection to rate their knowledge of positive interactions between people and the land. The median response was none. I want to read a paragraph from the book, page 6. I was stunned. How is it possible that in 20 years of education they cannot think of any beneficial relationships between people and the environment? Perhaps the negative examples they see every day, brownfields, factory farms, suburban sprawl, truncated their ability to see some good between humans and the earth. As the land becomes impoverished, so too does the scope of their vision. When we talked about this after class, I realized that they could not even imagine what beneficial relations between their species and others might look like. How can we begin to move towards ecological and cultural sustainability if we cannot even imagine what that path feels like? If we can't imagine the generosity of geese, these students were not raised on the story of Sky Woman. Thank you. Indigenous stories often relay original instructions. That is, the way we were meant to be as people. A compass or a map for living. It's not transcendent because it needs to be renewed in every generation. The author asks, have we cast out these original instructions? Have we worn out our welcome originally offered by an abundant Mother Earth? Other species have always been the lifeboat for humans. Now we must be theirs. The maternal image of the pregnant Sky Woman reminds us that to be indigenous means to live as if your grandchildren's future matters. To take care of the land as we take care of our children, as if both of our lives, material and spiritual, depend on it, because of course they do. Again, reading from her book, page 9. In the old times, when people's lives were so directly tied to the land, it was easy to know the world as a gift. When fall came, the skies would darken with flocks of geese honking, "Here we are!" It reminds the people of the creation story when the geese came up to save Sky Woman. The people are hungry, winter is coming, and the geese fill the marshes with food. It is a gift, and the people receive it with thanksgiving, love, and respect. But when the food does not come as a flock from the sky, when you don't feel the warm feathers cool in your hand and know that a life has been given for you, when there is no gratitude in return, that food may just not satisfy. We may leave spirit hungry while the belly is full. Something is broken when the food comes on a styrofoam tray wrapped in a slippery plastic, the carcass of a being whose only chance at life was a cramped cage. That is not a gift of life. It is theft. And now the descendants of Sky Woman and Eve meet, and the land around us bears the scars. Indigenous stories often relay original instructions. Excuse me, I already said that. I'm so sorry. Here, I must set the book down. There are so many stories I want you to explore. Like, why do all the pecan trees in a grove bear nuts overabundantly in one year and then not at all in the next? Is there communication between individual tree beings? Was the Indian Removal Act and the Indian boarding school movement two prongs in the same mission? Why is it that Native people have a different idea about the ownership of land? Did you know that the Constitution only protects the rights of landowners? The trees say that all flourishing is mutual. Just a couple of wild and crazy ideas that Robin talks about in her book. Good. Now I'm going to break the library rules. Please forgive me in advance, Barb. I didn't tell her I was going to do this, so there. I'm going to have you each take a napkin because I'm going to pass around something that is juicy. But I promise you don't have to eat it if you don't want to. I just want you to smell it. And then maybe eat it when you get out to your car. The gift of the strawberry. I trust that each of you have tasted a ripe, wild strawberry. It's the sacred fruit of the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse, or the Iroquois, and it comes to us freely given from Mother Earth. Here we must return to the creation story. Remember the pregnant Sky Woman? Well, her time finally came, and she gave birth on Turtle Island to a beautiful baby girl who grew up to become a young woman, and one night was impregnated by the west wind, who left his mark, 2 crossed arrows on the young woman's body. The pregnancy was quick and quite scary. Remember how quickly storms come up from the west? And Sky Woman knew that her daughter was pregnant with twins. One twin was impatient to be born, and he cut through his mother's side to get out first. Now a grandmother, Sky Woman, watched as her daughter, still in labor, bled to death after the other twin was finally born in the normal way. Oh, they smell so good. Oh my gosh. She buried her daughter's body and visited the grave every day to report on the progress of the boys. The first is called the bad twin, the one that came out sideways, and the second born, the good twin. Over the weeks, the Sky Woman noticed 5 plants were growing from her daughter's burial mound, brand new in Turtle Island, that she did not recognize. The 3 sisters. Remember? corn, beans, and squash. Yep. Now see, here's where you have to start to juggle everything that I'm passing around. But you're up for it, I'm sure. The three sisters grew interdependently. Tall sister corn, planted first, supporting trellis sister beans, while sister squash acts as ground cover. Next, she noticed a tall, fuzzy, broad-leafed plant with beautiful pink trumpet flowers growing from where her daughter's head would have been. This was sacred tobacco, the representation of the good mind, the smoke-filled connection between human and creator. Last to bloom were the tiny white flowers that gave way to hard little white ground berries, so unique because their seeds are all on the outside of the fruit. It is called the strawberry, and it is such important medicine that it warrants a ceremony upon its arrival. The white blossoms alert you that there will be no more white stuff covering the ground, snow, so you can begin work in your garden without ever having another danger of frost. The sweet smell of the strawberry juice is the fragrance of the spirit world, because there, streams do not flow water, but strawberry juice. And the berry's shape, just like that of our human heart, represents the good heart, our compassionate connection between human and the earth. Just like the strawberry, we are designed to give everything away, hoard nothing, as the berry teaches us with all of its seeds on the outside. One of these stories sustains the living systems on which we depend. One of these stories opens up the way to living in gratitude and amazement at the riches and the generosity of the world. One of these stories asks us to bestow our own gifts in kind, to celebrate our kinship with the world. We can choose. If all the world is a commodity, how poor we grow. When all the world is a gift in motion, how wealthy we become. In those childhood fields waiting for the strawberries to ripen, I used to eat the sour white ones, sometimes out of hunger, but mostly from impatience. I knew the long-term results of my short-term greed, but I took them anyway. Fortunately, our capacity for self-restraint grows and develops like the berries and the leaf beneath the leaves, and I learned to wait. A little. I remember lying on my back in the fields, watching the clouds go by and rolling over to check the berries every few minutes. When I was young, I thought that this change might happen that fast. Now I am old, and I know that transformation is slow. The commodity economy has been here on Turtle Island for 400 years, eating up the white strawberries and everything else. But people have grown weary of the sour taste in their mouths. A great longing is upon us to live again in the world made of gifts. I can scent it coming, like the fragrance of ripened strawberries rising on the breeze. As they grew up in their grandmother's longhouse, the twins agreed to disagree. The good twin was the lord of the daytime and was companionable and optimistic. He was creative and he cared for all the needs of his grandmother. He made beautiful flowers and trees and insects to pollinate them, and he invited human beings, and he is called Creator. Let me pass around a couple more things, Wilbert. This is a wonderful book of the story of Sky Woman, and I've identified some of the stories that I've been telling. And this was written by Joanne Shenandoah, who was also most famous for her music. And one of my very, very special days of my entire life was when I worked at the Clemens Center and I was able to book Joanne Shenandoah for a concert there. It was many years ago. And inside her CD is a wonderful story about the founding of the Confederacy. So I'll pass this around. Some of you may be interested. She's no longer with us, unfortunately. She has died. But one of my favorite memories is she invited her entire family, and many of them drove down from Syracuse and further away, to that concert at our Clemens Center. And after the audience had all filed out, the family took a portrait on the stage of the Clemens Center with Joanne and her entire family. It was really, really very special. So, she is also a wonderful author and wrote that with her husband. And it was published. Okay, let's see. We were talking about the good twin. He was the good guy, okay. He fashioned rivers for canoeing, gently flowing in opposite directions at each bank. Amazing, right? Each day, he would return with stories of his creative adventures for his grandmother to marvel at, for his twin brother to mock. The evil twin slept all day and was awake at night. He could see in the dark, but he could also use his incredible sense of smell to sniff out where his brother had been. He was the one who put thorns on the roses and the witch hazel. He gave the pollinators sharp mouths and tail parts to sting humans and animals. He gave the snake poison in its fangs. And he was the one who put the spell on those beautiful rivers, sending them down waterfalls and white water boulders, and he was the one who made them go in only one direction. Imagine. One day, Sky Woman told her grandsons that she was ready to go to the sky world. And the good twin was saddened, but told her finally that he would honor her wishes and he would bury her next to their mother, and he would come to visit every day. He thanked her for all that she had taught him. The evil twin could not accept his grandmother's decision and shook her by the shoulders and shouted, "You can't leave me!" And he shook her so hard that her head separated from her body and flew up in the sky. And you can see her there now, for now she is known as Grandmother Moon, still diligently watching her beloved grandsons and all the beings on Turtle Island, and she still dances counterclockwise in that circle, round and round. Sometimes we see her full in the face because she is looking straight at us. But as she turns, we see part of her face, then nothing at all, but back she comes. Every, what we call months, they call moons. Trying to find my place. How many times do we find her full in the face? How many times do we see in a year of Grandmother Moon? 13. Why 13, you might ask? Because she has not forgotten the gift of that turtle, providing a home for her when she fell. And there are 13 segments on the back of New York State snapping turtles, still today. Many indigenous people have names for each of those moons. One of my favorite books by Joe Bruchac, and I've noted 2 of them that are Haudenosaunee moon names in that book. In Haudenosaunee villages, there is the moon of the cracking trees. That would be February. And maple sugar moon, when the maple sap begins to flow. And the strawberry moon, when all the children go out to find the red, ripe strawberries by moonlight. Grandmother Moon still controls the ocean tides and supervises the flow and gestation of women of childbearing years, just as she watched over her her daughter's pregnancy so many lifetimes ago. And the twins are still here with us. You know the good twin who brings us abundance and gifts and fresh breezes and bird songs, sunrises, sunsets. His brother is still here too, and may be found in some people's dispositions. His work is in creating fear, chaos, rot, disunity, and aggression. Thankfully, their forces are of equal weight, and we humans can choose which one we will nurture. But evil is lurking around every corner in dark places when we're not paying attention. He will make himself known. There are so many stories and lessons in this book. I just lift up a few of them for you to think about today. As a human being who cannot photosynthesize, I must struggle to participate in the honorable harvest. And this means take only what is freely offered. Never take the first and never take the last. Introduce yourself to the natural world and ask permission before you take. Leave something in return. Your gratitude is a good place to start. Recognize your role as gardener, especially to those crops that depend on we humans to cultivate them. Invest in your garden, knowing that it loves you back. Consider how global warming affects tree species who cannot move to cooler climates. Consider planting endangered tree species from warmer regions to cooler ones. For fuel, only purchase energy that is freely given. That would mean wind, geothermal, tidal, or solar power. Not coal or oil or natural gas or plutonium. Those are all ripped from inside Mother Earth. Be willing to invest for the future in more ways than purchasing commodities. Think restorative justice for plants as well as for humans. Remember that all is meant to be shared. Don't forget the strawberry. Rejoice that plants speak the universal language of love, which is food. Kimmerer has illustrated so many aspects of the richness of Native understanding that are particular to our region's Indigenous people. The way they were originally instructed to live. Foundational to all is a sense of gratitude for all the blessings in our world that flows from a recognition of each aspect of the great joy and gift of life. The Thanksgiving address, referred to as words before all else, is a prayer, and it can be abbreviated in a personal daily mnemonic or recited as a day-long ceremonial message by a faith keeper at a powwow. But in either fashion, it begins with the intention of bringing the minds of all the people together. Remember in school when you said the Pledge of Allegiance every morning? Imagine how your life would be with the recitation of this every morning. Here I offer a child-sized version of the Thanksgiving address. It says, greetings and thanks to each other as people, to the earth, mother of all, greetings and thanks, to all the waters, waterfalls and rain, rivers and oceans, greetings and thanks, to all the fish life, greetings and thanks, The grain, the beans, the greens, the berries, we as one send you greetings and thanks. To all the plants, the medicine herbs of the world and their keepers, greetings and thanks. To all the animals, to their teacher, to their teachings, greetings and thanks. The trees, for shelter and shade, fruit and beauty, greetings and thanks. To all the birds, large and small, joyful greetings and thanks. From the four directions, the four winds, thank you for purifying the air we breathe and for giving us strength. Greetings. The thunderers, our grandfathers in the sky, we hear your voices, greetings and thanks. And now the sun, the light of every new day, and the fires of all life. Greetings and thanks. And to our oldest grandmother, the moon, leader of women all over the world, and to the stars for their mysteries, beauty, and guidance, greetings and thanks. And to all of our teachers from all times, reminding us of how we were intended to live as people, greetings and thanks. And for all the gifts of creation, for all the love that is still around us, we bring our minds together as one. And for that which is forgotten, we remember. Now our minds are one. And at this point, I would teach you a Seneca greeting. Goes like this: Nyawe skeno gwagego, which means thanks to Creator that we are together and we are well. Nyawe skeno gwagego. Do you want to say it back? Nyawe skeno gwagego. And the shortened version of that is just Nyawe, like you can say Nyawe. Or if you just see somebody or are texting something, you can just say Nyo. And it means thanks. Okay, let's see. One more reading, page 111. Good. Imagine raising children in a culture in which gratitude is the first priority. Frida Jacks, who works at the Onondaga Nation School, does this. She's a clan mother, school community liaison, and a generous teacher. She explains to me that the Thanksgiving address embodies the Onondaga relationship with the world. Each part of creation is thanked in turn for fulfilling the Creator-given duty to others. It reminds you every day that we have enough, she says. More than enough. Everything needed to sustain life is already here. When we do this every day, it leads us to an outlook of contentment and respect for all of creation. You can't listen to the Thanksgiving address without feeling wealthy. And while experiencing gratitude seems innocent enough, it is a revolutionary idea. In a consumer society, contentment is a radical proposition. Recognizing abundance rather than scarcity undermines every economy that thrives by creating unmet desires. Gratitude cultivates an ethic of fullness, but the economy needs emptiness. The Thanksgiving address reminds you that you already have everything you need. Gratitude doesn't send you out shopping to find satisfaction. It comes as a gift rather than a commodity, subverting the foundation of our entire economy. That's good medicine for land and for people alike. Okie dokie. I wish I had more time to read to you, but I know you are all going to Google her, Robin Wall Kimmerer, when you get home, Braiding Sweetgrass, to watch some videos or maybe to listen to the book on your Libby or to read it. It's really wonderful and it bears rereading if you read it when it first came out 10 years ago. The author brings the book to a powerful closing. with the story of Onondaga Lake. You may know this lake is located adjacent to the city of Syracuse and has been the dumping ground for industrial pollution for over 200 years. It is, since the Erie Canal first brought commerce to the Salt City, today it is a dead lake, one of the most polluted places in the country. Yet it is still considered sacred by the Onondaga Nation, whose federally recognized reservation you drive right through on Route 81 north to Nedrow, New York, when driving to Syracuse. It is the place where the prophet Peacemaker and his disciple Alan Hatha combed the snakes from Atataro's hair, enabling the final fifth nation, Onondaga, of the Iroquois Confederacy to pick up the peace and to join their former enemies in a network designed to empower the good mind and the good heart, referred to as the Great Law. This is just a prop that I made to pass around when talking about the wampum belts, so it is not valuable at all, it's just something I made, but it really represents the Haudenosaunee flag, which you might notice is purple and white, based not only on the color of wampum, but as we heard from Robin this morning, the color, the bands, the purple and white bands at the bottom of Sweetgrass. So this is the Stars and Stripes for the Haudenosaunee people, representing the 5 nations who united. Let's see, we've got Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, where the Tree of Peace is from Peacemaker. Over here at the western door are the Mohawk and the Oneidas. You may see this as a bumper sticker occasionally, and if you go to a powwow, you'll see all kinds of those things in the parking lot. It's really fun. It is where the great white pine tree was uprooted and the warriors invited to bring their man-killing weapons, like one of these placed in the handle, and those weapons were buried at the foot of the great white pine tree. Filled the cavity with their man-killing weapons. Then the tree stretched out its roots in all directions, enabling other indigenous groups to follow the white roots of peace to Onondaga, the central fire of the Iroquois Confederacy. That happened at least 600 years ago, long before Columbus discovered himself in the Americas. Today there's a group called NOON, N-O-O-N, Neighbors of the Onondaga Nation, who are working to reclaim Onondaga Lake, removing the toxic sludge from the bottom of the lake and replanting native species, including, of course, sweetgrass. This is slow going, 7th generation work that is for the benefit of your grandchildren's grandchildren. But it's worth doing. You will often hear the elders say, "Be careful where you walk, for the faces of the yet unborn look up at us from just under the skin of Mother Earth." Reading this last section of her book reminds me of listening to the environmentalist Greta Thunberg, who has often said, "Stop telling me you're sorry and get busy fixing the messes you've made." And sometimes the mess seems so overwhelmingly large, and our efforts so small that you give up in despair. But Kimmerer reminds us, if despair and grief can be a doorway to love, then let us weep for the world that we are breaking apart, so that we can love it back to wholeness again. Reading this book is a place to start. Tending and loving a garden is another. I promise you that after reading this book, maple syrup and pecans and strawberries will each have a different taste. And on spring evenings, you will stop and roll the windows down on your car and listen to the peepers, knowing that they are calling out, help, help, help. And you will be better prepared to help, body, mind, and spirit. Thank you. I did bring up some more artifacts that I didn't get a chance to pass around, so please come up and take a look. I also have 3 museums that I would recommend you visit if you can, and if you want to learn more. And now, of course, we don't even have to get in our car to visit museums anymore, because you can just do it online, which is really great. Ganandagan that I mentioned in Victor, New York, due north of us. There's a cultural center in Syracuse, used to be called St. Marie among the Iroquois, and now is called something about the Peace Museum. I can't remember what it's changed to. To our east in Howe's Cave, you know, when you're driving to Albany, you see Howe's Cave. There's a museum there. That's and then to our west is Salamanca, the Seneca National Museum. So please avail yourself of all those resources. And any questions? We have a minute or 2, or if you have to leave, we understand. Yes, Bonnie?
Just one announcement. The library has a program this weekend.
Can you speak up, please?
The library here at Steele has a program this weekend with the blanket in peace.
The Kairos blanket.
Yes. And it's about 3 hours, I think. But it sounded fantastic. And again, you immerse yourself more in what you have shown us.
And that is by a part of Noon, Neighbors of the Onondaga Nation. Yes, I do have one more handout. I found, being a museum educator, you know, and having a copier at my disposal, you know I copied everything. So these green sheets, I have enough copies, I think, for all of you, which is the famous Chief Seattle's address that you may have heard about, so you can all take one home. And there's a reason it's on green paper. Okay? Who else has a comment? Yes, Anita?
What does sweetgrass look like? Growing, where does it grow and how do you find it?
It grows on the edges of freshwater marshes, especially where the current is strong. So in order to, and you can learn all about, you know, planting it and tending it and picking it in this book. But you saw it dried in the braid, right? I can't remember where did the braid go to. Oh, here. So it's about this tall. And part of it would be underwater, but quite a bit, enough of it would be above water so that you can find it and pull it out by its roots. So we have it here in the Finger Lakes. We have it at Seneca Lake, the Queen Catherine Marsh in Watkins Glen that has sweetgrass. Oh yeah.
Do they use it just for making baskets, or do they use it for decoration, or?
Baskets is very important because it's you know, it helps hold the white ash together, as you saw here. It also provides that wonderful smell and a color and texture differentiation. But also, here's some examples of it bound up in this other smudge stick with juniper and tobacco and sage all together. So it is used to communicate with spirit, with Creator, in the form via smoke. That way. Let me think of how else it might be used. I think those are the two main ways. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a comment of an idea that came to me when you were speaking about the getting our food on styrofoam covered in plastic. Of a conversation I had with my elder son a few years ago. He's a very successful businessman as well as a hunter and fisher who feeds his entire family of 4 on his catches. And I've always kind of been against hunting. So one day I was voicing my opinion about his hunting to him. And he said, Mother, he said, the food my family eats, that animal lived its perfect life up until the moment the bullet hit his heart. He said he didn't live in a pen or a fish tank and go to a slaughterhouse terrified to be slaughtered. He said, so if you think better of thinking of the one that went to the slaughterhouse as opposed to the one that lived its perfect life in the woods, don't be against hunting.
And even being a, a gatherer. When was the last time you thanked a broccoli for giving up its life so that you can be sustained? You know what I mean? We really have so lost the connection between what we eat and what our bodies become from what we eat, and being grateful. It's fascinating. People used to get upset, students used to get upset at one great big painting at the Rockwell Museum of the buffalo hunt. It's like, oh, the poor buffalo. So I used to tell that story about, ask your parents when the last time was that they thanked a broccoli when you get home. And that gave them something to think about. Because animals, Creator made animals and plants here for the survivor of everyone. And it's not just us. All the animals need the plants to survive as well.
And Ken Burns has the new documentary,
On the buffalo.
American Buffalo.
Yes. And the first
That's
segment
only
of
he
it.
can do.
Yeah.
The first act of it speaks very strong, or very effectively, about the importance of the buffalo and the entire animal to the Native Americans. This is kind of on the side, but I have a sister who moved to South Carolina in the last 10 years. And when she moved there, she discovered, and I discovered through her, sweetgrass braiding that preserves Gullah culture.
Sure.
Do you know of any parallels there? I mean, I heard, one parallel after another in your sharing the creation stories. And it seems to me, there are so many similarities between creation stories across cultures. I'm sure there are similarities as well across the artistic expression of cultures.
Yeah. Sweetgrass is used by all basket makers wherever it grows, and it grows abundantly throughout Turtle Island. We think of certain specialities like the strawberry and the maple tree, which is our part of the world that don't exist in Arizona, okay? But they have other things. They have materials that they use from the cactus that we don't have here in New York. So, yeah, but I'm sure it's such a wonderful braiding material because, when you braid a basket or weave a basket, you work with damp materials, and then they dry and become hard. And sweetgrass is thin but very strong. So it's a great material for braiding, for weaving baskets. Yeah. Good. Yes, Beth.
I read the book, and I remember it was towards the end, and I can't think of who was speaking, but there was the mantra, so much depends. So much depends. Do you remember this section, Jenny? So much depends. And I was thinking about William Carlos Williams, who wrote the poem, So Much Depends Upon the Red Wheelbarrow. You remember that from school? But so much, it just resonated with me that we do. So much depends on us. But just hearing the mantra of that was empowering, or it really spoke to me that, so much depends. Just so much depends on us.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was quite a tribute to the author and to her book.
And do a little research. You will love the YouTubes that feature her reading and talking. Wonderful. She is a contemporary voice, and thank goodness she's come because she's taken over a little bit of what Joanne Shenandoah's work was in sharing her Indigenous culture. So even though Robin Wall Kimmerer is citizen Potawatomi in terms of her tribal affiliation, she lives in the Haudenosaunee world in terms of where she lives now up near Syracuse, and finds a lot of parallels between what her ancestors and what our people here in this world believe. Yes, there's so much, so much. Thank you all for staying and for being such a great circle. Yes. Was there something else? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I see it's videotape. Like, is this available afterwards for somebody who couldn't be here?
You'll have to ask the library.
We're gonna put it on our YouTube page. I just have to finish gathering all of the videos and upload them.
Oh,
Good.